Well, time to talk retirement. And personally, I think the whole defined contribution retirement model is a little bit broken. If you look at the concept of employer-backed pensions, it dates all the way back to 1875, and it has its roots in the railroad industry in the United States. Those were DB plans, defined benefit plans, and you received a definite amount of benefit upon retirement, regardless of the performance of the stock market or the bond market or any other asset class. And for more than 100 years, pensions really were the light at the end of the tunnel. But that guaranteed secure retirement for generations of workers was really done away with when we moved over to the defined contribution system. DC plans have all the responsibility in the hands of the savers, and it does raise all sorts of questions about how we ensure that we take greater ownership and greater responsibility over our retirement plans. DC plan participants face great challenges. They're responsible for choosing their investments, and I know a lot of plan sponsors may argue that this empowers employees and gives them a choice. I think the truth is that most investors aren't good at choosing investments, and that's what the research shows. So what can be done about this? Well, I'm joined now by Nick Horn, Director and Regional Head of Citadel's Durban office. Evening, Nick.
Michael, good evening. Thanks for having me on the show.
Do you have power down there? Well, clearly you do on your cell phone, but on and off. I digress a little bit. It's all about putting the power back into the hands of retirement savers. And you sent out a press release the other day in which you state that the reality is that with careful planning, retirement shouldn't be an event that signifies any change in your financial behavior. All that changes is that you don't go to work, and everything else should ideally be taken care of. It sounds simple enough. So why then are we seeing stats like only 6% of retirees retiring with enough saved to achieve this goal?
Look, you raised it a little bit earlier on the DC versus DB kind of debate, and I think my experience of observing retirement for the last 24, 25 years in my career is that people just leave it too late. You also said something quite interesting. You said people aren't good at choosing their investments. I think they aren't good at choosing their investments for themselves. My sense is that I wouldn't say it's a fact. You cannot be objective about your own stuff. So the other point is that I find when I'm speaking to young people, they take far too little risk. When you look at the endowment choice, they're in very, very smooth, low-risk funds, and by the time you get to 45, 50, you start to panic and you start taking far too much risk. So, you get the sense that advice isn't taken early enough and a plan isn't set up early enough, a roadmap, for want of a better word, and people leave it too late.
If we look at some of the research, and there's an extract here from Alex Forbes' pension index, it's quite dated, the 2012-2013, but it's very relevant. And they say that since we had that transition from DB to DC funding in the early 1980s, we did see the employers shifting all of that responsibility of planning and advice and hand-holding to the employee. And the problem is that the replacement ratios have fallen as a result. And as I said earlier, only 6% of us are retiring with enough. Can we legislate our way out of this via the defaults that are currently on the table, in your opinion?
That's a tricky question. My sense is no. Look, I'm an advisor, so I'm a fan of freedom. And I think the freedom to be able to access markets and what they're able to give you is a lot more powerful. We can't blame that for bad planning. It's quite a paternalistic view, I think, to start wanting to legislate in that fashion. So I personally wouldn't feel that that's an answer. But maybe the answer is somewhere in the middle.
How do we help savers navigate through all of this choice? I think there is a strong sense amongst younger savers as well that they can go out and they can DIY things. There's robo-advisors, and they can just do their own desktop research and put their own retirement plans in place without the need for advice. I think there's a lot of distrust of experts just generally in that generation. How do we change that? Because you do need advice.
Absolutely.
Even doctors would go to other specialists if they had some serious blinding headache, for example, that they wouldn't try and treat themselves.
Look, I think there's a sense that people that give advice can tell the future, which is absolute nonsense. No one can do that. Advice is about setting up robust, diversified portfolios that behave well regardless of conditions. And in that sense, advice, not just initially, on an ongoing basis is absolutely vital. There's a thing around costs. The other thing I'd just like to add is, when you don't have a lot of money, how you treat that money is very, very different, and how you see that money is very, very different to when you do have money. And it's very easy to talk about DIYing and index funds and doing it yourself, but when suddenly you're sitting on a pot of money that you've taken a whole life to accumulate, your whole life's work, you cannot just rely on your own view and your own emotion to manage that money. It's highly dangerous. Yeah,
absolutely. That transition risk, I think, is key. So that's why I do like the rules and regulations around perhaps a retirement benefits counsellor. Nick, we're going to have to return to the subject sometime soon. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. That was Nick Horn, Director and Regional Head of Citadel's Durban office.